All right, Facebook, a big tech powerhouse, nearly 3 billion users. And for the last 3 years, our next guest has had unprecedented access to Facebook's key execs and employees and documents it all in his new book, Facebook, The Inside Story. Stephen Levy joins us now to discuss. So we were just chatting about when this project began for you. When did it begin, and when did you realize that this was the book that you needed to write next?
Well, to take the second question first, it was the end of the summer of 2015. I think it was August 27th was the date. Mark Zuckerberg posted, hey, 1 billion people were on Facebook at once, one day, yesterday. So to celebrate that. And in a way, it was a culmination of his dream. He wanted to connect everyone in the world. But no one had ever done that before, connecting a network of 1 billion people, and it was on the way up. So I thought, I've got to write this book.
But you've interviewed him years before. When did you first meet Mark and talk about your relationship with him as a reporter?
So I first met him in March 2006. I was working on a story for Newsweek about Web 2.0. Remember that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I heard about this hot new startup that was connecting college kids. And I thought, gee, I'm going to be at this conference where he's going to be at. I have to meet him. Maybe he'll give me a quote for my story. And I arranged to sit next to him at lunch. And I sat next to him. He was there. I asked him a few softball questions. Tell me about your company, Mark. And he didn't say anything. He just stared at me. And I think, what's going on here? Mm-hmm. Did I offend him in some way, or something happening? And he just stared. And I asked him another question. I wasn't getting anything. And finally, I broke the ice, and he started answering some questions there. But
awkward.
Yeah, it was awkward, and he was awkward back then.
Right.
But when I wrote the book, I discovered what was going on inside his head right around that time. This is 2006, the spring of 2006. And I got hold of the private journal he was keeping. He would walk around with these notebooks and write all his thoughts on them and his product designs and his visions for Facebook. I got hold of that notebook that he was keeping that spring, and I learned that he was feverishly working. He was in an utter flow state, creating what Facebook would become. He was creating the news feed, which is the product we all use. He was opening it up from college students, and he was envisioning it. He even wrote this as an information engine that would have information on everyone in the world.
God.
So now that you've basically been in his head and spent so much time with him, do you understand him and what's going on right now as it relates to everything around all these controversies, privacy and the antitrust and the political ads? Like, do you get him? Do you know what he's going to do?
Well, I couldn't say 100% what he's going to do, but I feel I know him pretty well. And when he'll do something, it makes sense to me from my grand unified theory of Mark Zuckerberg.
And, we're talking a lot about Mark Zuckerberg here, but what about Sheryl Sandberg? Where does she fit into this calculus? Because I think the market I don't know if you guys would agree with this. Maybe the market says, well, Sheryl's still the adult. It'll be fine as long as Sheryl Sandberg is there. But what is that dynamic like now, and how did that change the company?
You cannot think of Sheryl as the adult. She was the experienced person who was going to take care of the things that Mark thought that she would be good at and that he wasn't interested in. So when he brought her on, he knew that he needed someone to help set up a grown-up culture, on one hand, that he didn't have experience of that, and also to help with his business model. She was in charge of AdWords, which was the super rocket ship project at Google that brought in all the money. So he wanted something like that at Facebook. But he kept the core of the company for himself. The product was his domain, and the stuff that he wasn't interested in was Sheryl's domain: sales and policy and policing content and HR, things like that, where Sheryl could do a great job, but Mark would be running his part of the company. And that split turned out to bite them back later on when they ran into trouble.
Why is that? And can you answer this question? I mean, maybe it's an unfair question. I'm sure you get it all the time, though, Steve. Which
unfair questions, sure.
Yeah, right at you. Is Facebook evil?
I would say no. I think, in my definition of evil, I don't think that they sit there with their pinky fingers in their mouths and saying, how can we mess up people's lives, right? Exactly.
Yeah, like that one.
Facebook. And I think that they operate on one hand, they think that connecting the world and sharing is a good thing, and there's some idealism in that. But on the other hand, they're a very competitive company. Mark is a very competitive person. I talked to his parents. He was competitive when he was a kid. He played Risk, and he was pretty good at it. And he knew how to go from one country to another country and take over the world. And when he started Facebook, he did the same thing. His campus to some other campus until all the campuses were Facebook campuses. And then when Facebook started going around the world, it was one country and another country, and the other social networks crumbled and fell. So that competitiveness was very important, and a lust for growth, a need for growth, overwhelmed sometimes what would have been a prudent way to spread Facebook and to design Facebook.
So we just talked about Warren Buffett and his letter. Do you think he's dealing with succession plans? Could you see Mark Zuckerberg ever stepping back from Facebook? I mean, you say he's very competitive, but he's won.
Right.
He's got billions of people on his platform. Will he ever give up the reins?
You know, two words I've never heard at Facebook for all the time I've been there are succession plan.
Yeah, right. Well, guys, how old is he now?
He's 35.
Right, yeah.
So you don't hear that. He doesn't talk about that.
Most people are VPs at 35.
Will Sheryl Sandberg ever leave?
Well, I think that Cheryl will eventually leave. Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, when she told me that when she took the job, she figured I'll give them 5 years, and it's been over 10.
So you wrote famously this book in 1984. It's truly amazing, called Hackers. I mean, and I got to really hand it to you because that really, you saw the future there. It was like the hacker culture. In 1984, you wrote that book. So, but has the whole thing gone off the rails? Silicon Valley?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it certainly evolved, and the hacker ethic, which I wrote about in that book, which is about doing anything you possibly dream of on the computer and getting your hands on everything. This mentality of changing the world because you could hack it. That evolves, and that actually is very core to Mark Zuckerberg. When he went public, he wrote a little essay about it called The Hacker Way.
Yeah, of course.
It was
and that's
kind of a rewrite
that's the road is Hacker Way.
It was kind of a rewrite of chapter 2 of my book.
Yeah, right.
And I was cool with it. And and you walk around there and it says the hacker company. So I think that I'm amazed at the degree to which that hacker ethic has spread throughout our culture and changed people, not only in technology, but the way they deal with business and the way they deal with life.
Are you and the armpits?
Yeah. Are you surprised or frustrated at the armpits?
Yeah, last week was Armpit Gate. One of the early PR people.
I thought we could get away with that. Go ahead.
Well, the early PR people told me, because Mark is prone to perspire, especially in his early days when he went on stage, that she would use a blow dryer to dry out his armpits before he went on stage.
With a $325 T-shirt.
Yeah. Well, he but
black.
But I don't think he has that problem so much now. But whenever you are with Mark, and I've interviewed him on stage a couple times, he has them turn the temperature down to Arctic levels. So if you're ever interviewing Mark Zuckerberg on stage and you're going to sit with him in the green room, bring a parka.
He would be very comfortable here.
I'll keep that in mind for my next life. All right, Stephen Levy, the author of the book, Facebook, The Inside Story. Thanks so much for joining us. Book is out tomorrow.